Charles M. Schulz, Charles Schultz, Charles Monroe. Sparky. Schulz, November 26, 1922 February 12, 2000, was an American cartoonist and the creator of the comic strip Peanuts, featuring what are probably his two best-known characters, Charlie Brown and Snoopy. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential cartoonists in history and cited by many cartoonists as a major influence, including Jim Davis, Murray Ball, Bill Watterson, Matt Groening, and Dav Pilkey. Peanuts pretty much defines the modern comic strip, states Watterson, so even now it's hard to see it with fresh eyes. The clean, minimalist drawings, the sarcastic humor, the unflinching emotional honesty, the inner thoughts of a household pet, the serious treatment of children, the wild fantasies, the merchandising on an enormous scale in countless ways. Schultz blazed the wide trail that most every cartoonist since has tried to follow. Early life and education. Charles Monroe Schultz was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota on November 26, 1922 and grew up in St. Paul. He was the only child of Carl Schulz and Dina Haverson and was of German and Norwegian descent. His uncle called him Sparky after the horse Spark Plug in Billy DeBeck's comic strip Bonnie Google, which Schulz enjoyed reading. Schulz loved drawing and sometimes drew his family dog, Spike, who ate unusual things such as pins and tacks. In 1937, Schulz drew a picture of Spike and sent it to Ripley's Believe It or Not. His drawing appeared in Robert Ripley's syndicated panel captioned "A hunting dog that eats pins, tacks, and razor blades" is owned by Celsius Fahrenheit. Schulz Street Paul Men and drawn by Sparky C.F. was his father. Schulz attended Richards Gordon Elementary School in St. Paul, where he skipped 2 half grades. He became a shy, timid teenager, perhaps as a result of being the youngest in his class at Central High School. One well-known episode in his high school life was the rejection of his drawings by his high school yearbook, which he referred to in Peanuts years later, when he had loosely asked Charlie Brown to sign a picture he drew of a horse, only to then say it was a prank. A 5-foot-tall statue of Snoopy was placed in the school's main office 60 years later. Military service and post-war positions. Thumb upright equals 0.75 United States Army portrait of Sergeant Schulz. In February 1943, Schulz's mother Dina died after a long illness. At the time of her death, he had only recently been made aware that she suffered from cancer. Schulz had by all accounts been very close to his mother, and her death had a significant effect on him. Around the same time, Schulz was drafted into the United States Army. He served as a staff sergeant with the 20th Armored Division in Europe during World War II as a squad leader on a 50 caliber machine gun team. His unit saw combat only at the very end of the war. Schulz said he had only one opportunity to fire his machine gun but forgot to load it, and that the German soldier he could have fired it willingly surrendered. Years later, Schulz proudly spoke of his wartime service. For being under fire, he did receive the Combat Infantry Badge, of which he was very proud. In late 1945, Schulz returned to Minnesota, where he did lettering for a Roman Catholic comic magazine Timeless Topics. Before he was drafted, Schulz had taken a correspondence course from the School Art Instruction, Inc., and in July 1946 took a job at the school where he reviewed and graded students' work. He worked at the school for several years as he developed his career as a comic creator. Career. Schulz's first group of regular cartoons, a weekly series of one-panel jerks called Lil Fox, was published from June 1947 to January 1950 in the Street Paul Pioneer Press, with Schulz usually doing 4 one-panel drawings per issue. It was in Lil Fox that Schulz first used the name Charlie Brown for a character, although he applied the name in 4 gags to 3 different boys as well as one buried in sand. The series also had a dog that looked much like Snoopy. In May 1948, Schulz sold his first one-panel drawing to the Saturday Evening Post. Within the next 2 years, a total of 17 entitled drawings by Schulz were published in the Post, simultaneously with his work for the Pioneer Press. Around the same time, he tried to have Lil Fox syndicated through the Newspaper Enterprise Association. Schulz would have been an independent contractor for the syndicate, unheard of in the 1940s, but the deal fell through. Lil Fox was dropped from the Pioneer Press in January 1950. Later that year, Schulz approached United Features Syndicate with the one-panel series Lil Fox, and the syndicate became interested. By that time, Schulz had also developed a comic strip, usually using 4 panels rather than 1, and to Schulz's delight, the syndicate preferred that version. But to his consternation, the syndicate had to change the title for Schulz's strip for legal reasons and selected a new name, Peanuts. Peanuts made its first appearance on October 2, 1950, in 7 newspapers. The weekly Sunday page debuted on January 6, 1952. After a slow start, Peanuts eventually became one of the most popular comic strips of all time, as well as one of the most influential. Schulz also had a short-lived sports-oriented comic strip, It's Only a Game 1957-59, but he abandoned it after the success of Peanuts. From 1956 to 1965, he contributed the gag cartoon Young Pillars featuring teenagers to youth, a publication associated with the Church of God. In 1957 and 1961, he illustrated 2 volumes of Outlink letters Kids Say the Darndest Things, and in 1964, a collection of letters, Dear President Johnson, by Bill Adler. Peanuts. At its height, Peanuts was published daily in 2,600 papers in 75 countries, in 21 languages. Over nearly 50 years, Schultz drew 17,897 published Peanut strips. The strips, plus merchandise and product endorsements, produced revenues of more than $1 billion per year, with Schultz earning an estimated $30 million to $40 million annually. During the strip's run, Schultz took only one vacation, a 5-week break in late 1997 to celebrate his 75th birthday. Runs of the strip ran during his vacation, the only time that occurred during Schultz's life. The first collection of Peanut strips was published in July 1952 by Reinhardt and Company. Many more books followed, greatly contributing to the strip's increasing popularity. In 2004, Fantagraphics began their complete Peanut series. Peanuts also proved popular in other media. The first animated TV special, A Charlie Brown Christmas, aired in December 1965 and won an Emmy Award. Numerous TV specials followed, the latest being Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown in 2011. Until his death, Schultz wrote or co-wrote the TV specials and carefully oversaw their production. Charlie Brown, the principal character of Peanuts, was named after a co-worker at Dot Instruction Inc. Schultz drew much from his own life, some examples being like Charlie Brown's parents. Schultz's father was a barber and his mother a housewife. Like Charlie Brown, Schultz had often felt shy and withdrawn. In an interview with Charlie Rose in May 1997, Schultz observed, I suppose there's a melancholy feeling in a lot of cartoonists because cartooning, like all other humor, comes from bad things happening. Schultz reportedly had an intelligent dog when he was a boy. Although this dog was a pointer, not a beagle like Snoopy, family photos confirm a certain physical resemblance. References to Snoopy's brother Spike living outside of Needles, California, were influenced by the few years 1928-30 the Schultz family lived there. They moved to Needles to join all the family members who had relocated from Minnesota to tend to an ill cousin. Schultz's inspiration for Charlie Brown's unrequited love for the little red-haired girl was Donna Meade Johnson, an Odd Instruction Inc. accountant with whom he fell in love. When Schultz finally proposed to her in June 1950, shortly after he had made his first contract with his syndicate, she turned him down and married another man. Linus and Shermy were named for his good friends Linus Moore and Sherman Plepler, respectively. Peppermint Patty was inspired by Patricia Swanson, one of his cousins on his mother's side. Schultz devised the character's name when he saw peppermint candies in his house. Influences. The Charles M. Schulz Museum counts Milton Caniff Terry and the Pirates and Bill Mauldin as key influences on Schultz's work. In his own strip, Schultz regularly described Snoopy's annual Veterans Day visits with Mauldin, including mention of Mauldin's World War II cartoons. Schultz also credited George Herman Crazy Cat, Roy Crane Wash Tabs, Elsie Elsis, Sigga Thimble Theatre and Percy Crosby Skippy as influences. In a 1994 address to fellow cartoonists, Schultz discussed several of them. But according to his biographer Retta Grimsley Johnson, according to the museum, Schultz watched the movie Citizen Kane 40 times. The character Lucy Van Pelt also expresses a fondness for the film, and in one strip she cruelly spoils the ending for her younger brother. Personal life. In April 1951, Schultz married Joyce Havison, no relation to Schultz's mother Dina Havison Schultz, and Schultz adopted Havison's daughter Meredith Hodges. Later the same year, they moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Their son, Monty, was born in February 1952, and 3 more children were born later in Minnesota. Schultz and his family returned to Minneapolis and stayed until 1958. They then moved to Sebastopol, California, where Schultz built his first studio. Until then, he had worked at home or in a small rented office room. It was there that Schultz was interviewed for the on-air television documentary A Boy Named Charlie Brown. Some of the footage was eventually used in a later documentary, Charlie Brown and Charles Schultz. Schultz's father died while visiting him in 1966, the same year Schultz's Sebastopol studio burned down. By 1969, Schultz had moved to Santa Rosa, California, where he lived and worked until his death. While briefly living in Colorado Springs, Schultz painted a mural on the bedroom wall of his daughter Meredith featuring Patty with a balloon, Charlie Brown jumping over a candlestick, and Snoopy playing on all fours. The wall was removed in 2001 and donated and relocated to the Charles M. Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa. By Thanksgiving of 1970, it was clear that Schultz's marriage was in trouble. He was having an affair with a 25-year-old woman named Tracy Claudius. The Schultzes divorced in 1972, and in September 1973 he married Jean Forsyth Clyde, whom he had first met when she brought her daughter to his hockey rink. They were married for 27 years until Schultz's death in 2000. Kidnapping attempt. On May 8, 1988, two gunmen in ski masks entered the Schultzes' home through an unlocked door planning to kidnap Jean, but the attempt failed when Charles' daughter Jill drove up to the house, prompting the would-be kidnappers to flee. Jill called the police from a neighbor's house. Sonoma County Sheriff Dick Michelson said, "It was obviously an attempted kidnap ransom. This was a targeted criminal act. They knew exactly who the victims were." Neither Schulz nor his wife was hurt during the incident. Sport. Right thumb up right equals 1.2 Schulz Schulz Highland Arena on Snelling Avenue and Ford Parkway in St. Paul, Minnesota. Schulz had a long association with ice sports, and both figure skating and ice hockey featured prominently in his cartoons. In Santa Rosa, he owned the Redwood Empire Ice Arena, which opened in 1969 and featured a snack bar called the Warm Puppy. Schulz's daughter Amy served as a model for the figure skating in the television special She's a Good Skate, Charlie Brown 1980. Schulz also was very active in senior ice hockey tournaments. In 1975, he formed Snoopy's Senior World Hockey Tournament at his Redwood Empire Ice Arena, and in 1981, he was awarded the Lesser Patrick Trophy for outstanding service to the sport of hockey in the United States. Schulz also enjoyed golf and was a member of the Santa Rosa Golf and Country Club from 1959 to 2000. In 1998, Schulz hosted the first over 75 hockey tournament. In 2000, the Ramsey County Board in St. Paul, Minnesota, voted to rename the Highland Park Ice Arena the Charles M. Schulz Highland Arena in his honor. Schulz also used his hockey rink for tennis exhibitions after meeting Billie Jean King. Many tennis pros played in the rink, including Roy Emerson. Art. In addition to comics, Schulz was interested in art in general. His favorite artist in his later years was Andrew Wyeth. As a young adult, Schulz also developed a passion for classical music. Although the piano-playing character Schroeder in Peanuts adored Beethoven, Schulz's personal favorite composer was Brahms. He had a strong personal respect for Murray Wall, creator of Trop Flats. The two men influenced each other throughout their careers. Religion. According to a 2015 spiritual biography, Schulz's faith was complex and personal. He often touched on religious themes in his work, including in the classic television cartoon A Charlie Brown Christmas 1965, which features Linus Cordy in the King James Version of the Bible to explain what Christmas is all about. In an interview, Schulz said that Linus represented his spiritual side, and the spiritual biography points out a much wider array of religious references. Reared in a nominally Lutheran family, Schulz was active in the Church of God as a young adult and later taught Sunday school at the United Methodist Church. In the 1960s, Robert L. Short interpreted certain themes and conversations in Peanuts as consistent with parts of Christian theology and used them as illustrations in his lectures on the Gospel, as explained in his book The Gospel According to Peanuts, the first of several he wrote on religion, Peanuts, and popular culture. Schulz's daughter Amy was drawn to join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints by a Latter-day Saint boyfriend. According to Amy, Schulz told her that the church is either true or it's a hoax, and I think it's a hoax. Although Schulz was disenchanted by Mormonism and his daughter's conversion, he continued to support her and, according to Amy, told her that he appreciated the bond between the two of them created by her belief in Christ and the Scriptures. From the late 1980s, Schulz said in interviews that some people had described him as a secular humanist but that he did not know one way or the other. In 2013, Schulz's widow said, "Failing health and retirement." In July 1981, Schulz underwent heart bypass surgery. During his hospital stay, President Ronald Reagan phoned to wish him a quick recovery. In the 1980s, Schulz complained that sometimes my hand shakes so much I have to hold my wrist to draw. This led to an erroneous impression that Schulz had Parkinson's disease. According to a letter from his physician placed in the archives of the Charles M. Schulz Museum by his widow, Schulz had essential tremor, a condition alleviated by beta blockers. Schulz still insisted on writing and drawing the strip by himself, resulting in noticeably shakier lines over time. In November 1999, Schulz suffered several small strokes and a blocked aorta, and he was later found to have colon cancer that had metastasized. Because of the chemotherapy and because he could not see clearly, he announced his retirement on December 14, 1999. The decision was difficult for Schulz, who told Al Roker on the Today Show, "I never dreamed that this was what would happen to me. I always had the feeling that I would probably stay with the strip until I was in my early 80s, but all of a sudden it's gone. It's been taken away from me. I did not take this away from me." Schulz was asked if, in his final Peanut strip, Charlie Brown would finally get to kick the football after so many decades. One of the many recurring themes in Peanuts was Charlie Brown's attempt to kick a football while Lucy was holding it, only to have Lucy pull it back at the last moment, causing him to fall on his back. His response, "Oh, number definitely not. I couldn't have Charlie Brown kicked that football. That would be a terrible disservice to him after nearly half a century." But in a December 1999 interview holding back tears, Schulz recounted the moment when he signed his final strip, saying, "All of a sudden I thought, that poor kid, he never even got to kick the football. What a dirty trick, he never had a chance to kick the football." On February 12, 2000, Schulz died in his sleep of a heart attack at his home in Santa Rosa, California, at the age of 77. He was suffering from colorectal cancer. The last original Peanut strip was published the following day. He had predicted that the strip would outlive him because the strips were usually drawn weeks before their publication. Schulz was buried at Pleasant Hill Cemetery in Sebastopol, California. Schulz was honored on May 27, 2000 by cartoonists of more than 100 comic strips who paid homage to him and Peanuts by incorporating his characters into their strips that day. While United Features retained ownership of the strip, Schulz requested that the syndicate allow no other artist to draw Peanuts. United Features honored his wishes, instead syndicating reruns. Because Schulz considered other media separate from the strip, new television specials and comic books with the Peanuts characters have been made since his death. Awards. Schulz received the National Cartoonist Society's Humor Comic Strip Award in 1962 for Peanuts and the Society's Elsie Segar Award in 1980. He was the first two-time winner of the Reuben Award for 1955 and 1964 and the winner of the Milton Caniff Lifetime Achievement Award in 1999. He was also an avid hockey fan. In 1981, Schulz was awarded the Lester Patrick Trophy for outstanding contributions to the sport of hockey in the United States, and he was inducted into the United States Hockey Hall of Fame in 1993. In 1988, Schulz received the Silver Buffalo Award, the highest adult award given by the Boy Scouts of America, for his service to American youth. On June 28, 1996, Schulz was honored with a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame adjacent to Walt Disney's. A replica of this star pit is outside his former studio in Santa Rosa. On November 2, 2015, Snoopy was also honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. On January 1, 1974, Schulz served as the Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade in Pasadena, California. This led to the only Peanuts strip in which he made any reference to himself. Lucy was watching the parade and told Linus that the Grand Marshal was somebody you've never heard of. The same year, he received the Inkpot Award. In 1980, Schulz received the Golden Plate Award of the American Academy of Achievement, presented by Awards Council member Judge John Sirica. Schulz was a keen bridge player, and Peanuts occasionally included bridge references. In 1997, the American Contract Bridge League Apple awarded both Snoopy and Woodstock the honorary rank of Life Master, and Schulz was delighted. On February 10, 2000, 2 days before Schulz's death, Congressman Mike Thompson introduced H.R. 3642, a bill to award Schulz the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor the United States legislature can bestow. The bill passed the House with only Ron Paul voting no and 24 not voting on February 15, and the bill was sent to the Senate, where it passed unanimously on May 2. The Senate also considered a related Bill S. 2060 introduced by Dianne Feinstein. President Bill Clinton signed the bill into law on June 20, 2000. On June 7, 2001, Schulz's widow Jean accepted the award on behalf of her late husband in a public ceremony. Schulz was inducted into the United States Figure Skating Hall of Fame in 2007. Schulz was the inaugural recipient of the Harvey Kurtzman Hall of Fame Award, accepted by Karen Johnson, director of the Charles N. Schulz Museum, at the 2014 Harvey Awards held at the Baltimore Comic Convention in Baltimore, Maryland. Biographies. Multiple biographies have been written about Schulz, including Retta Grimsley Johnson's Good Grief, the Story of Charles M. Schulz 1989, which Schulz authorized. The lengthiest biography, Schulz and Peanuts, a biography 2007 by David Michael, has been heavily criticized by the Schulz family. Schulz's son Monty stated it has a number of factual errors of interpretation, and he extensively documents these errors in a number of essays. However, Michaelis maintains that there is no question his work is accurate. Although cartoonist Bill Watterson, creator of Calvin and Hobbes, feels the biography does justice to Schulz's legacy, while giving insight into the emotional impetus of the creation of the strips, cartoonist and critic R.C. Harvey regards the book as falling short both in describing Schulz as a cartoonist and in fulfilling Michaelis' stated aim of understanding how Schulz knew the world. Harvey believes that Michaelis' biography inductively bends the facts to a thesis rather than logically deducing a thesis from the facts. Dan Shanahan's review in the American Book Review Vol. 29, Number 6 of Michaelis' biography faults the biography not for factual errors but for a predisposition to finding problems in Schulz's life to explain his art, regardless of how little the material lends itself to Michaelis' interpretations. Shanahan cites, in particular, such things as Michael Lee's crude characterizations of Schultz's mother's family and an almost voyeuristic quality to the 100 pages devoted to the breakup of Schultz's first marriage. In light of Michael Lee's biography and the controversy surrounding his interpretation of Charles Schultz's personality, responses from Schultz's family reveal some intimate details about Schultz's persona beyond that of a mere artist. Legacy. A proponent of crude spaceflight, Schulz was honored with the naming of Apollo 10 Command Module Charlie Brown and Lunar Module Snoopy, which launched on May 18, 1969. The Silver Snoopy Award is given to NASA employees and contractors for outstanding achievements related to human flight safety or mission success. The award certificate states that it is an appreciation for professionalism, dedication, and outstanding support that greatly enhance spaceflight safety and mission success. On July 1, 1983, Camp Snoopy opened at Knott's Berry Farm. It is a forest, mountain-themed area featuring the Peanuts characters. It has rides designed for younger children and is one of the most popular areas of the amusement park. When the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, opened in 1992, its amusement park had a Peanuts theme, which stopped in 2006 when the mall lost the rights to use the characters. The Gene and Charles Schulz Information Center at Sonoma State University opened in 2000 and now stands as one of the largest buildings in the California State University system, as well as in all of California, with a 400,000-volume general collection and a 750,000-volume automated retrieval system capacity. The $41.05 million building was named after Schulz, and his wife donated the $5 million needed to build and furnish the structure. In 2000, the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors renamed the county airport the Charles M. Schulz Sonoma County Airport. The airport's logo features Snoopy in goggles and scarf taking to the skies on top of his red dog eyes. Peanuts on Parade has been Street Paul, Minnesota's tribute to its favorite native cartoonist. It began in 2000 with the placing of 101 5-foot statues of Snoopy throughout the city of Street Paul. Every summer for the following 4 years, statues of a different Peanuts character were placed on the sidewalks of Street Paul. Charlie Brown around town 2001, Looking for Lucy 2002, Linus Blanket Street Paul 2003, and Snoopy lying on his doghouse 2004. The statues were auctioned off at the end of each summer, so some remain around the city, but others have been relocated. The auction proceeds were used for artist scholarships and for permanent bronze statues of the Peanuts characters, which are in Landmark Plaza, Rest Park in downtown Street Paul. The Charles M. Schulz Museum and Research Center in Santa Rosa opened in August 2002, 2 blocks away from his former studio, celebrating his life's work in the art of cartooning. A bronze statue of Charlie Brown and Snoopy stands in Depot Park in downtown Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa, California celebrated the 55th anniversary of the strip in 2005 by continuing the Peanuts on Parade tradition, beginning with It's Your Town, Charlie Brown 2005, Summer of Woodstock 2006, Snoopy's Tropical Summer 2007, and Look Out for Lucy 2008. In 2006, Forbes ranked Schulz as the third highest earning deceased celebrity, for he had earned $35 million in a previous year. In 2009, he was ranked 6th. According to Top Benoit, Schulz's income during his lifetime totaled more than $1.01 billion. Schulz's Santa Rosa home was destroyed during the October 2017 wildfires in California. In 2019, Apple TV Plus created a TV series titled For All Mankind, imagining what would have happened if the Russians had landed on the moon first. In later episodes, an American base is established on the moon, and the latest astronaut to arrive at the station is given a badge featuring Linus with the camp blanket and is known as Linus until a new member arrives. On November 26, 2022, over 75 syndicated cartoonists throughout the United States honored Schulz on what would have been his 100th birthday.